Today we got a question from Operation Random, who sent in a question through comment on one of the videos, and he has a situation where he's trained for a while and he had about 3 months off and he's wanting to get back into jiu-jitsu, but he's nervous about getting back to jiu-jitsu. He's nervous about getting back because he's worried about what people might say or what they might think of him, but he's wondering if I have any tips on how to, get over this and get back into the gym because he wants to train again. So, brother, thank you for the question. I say, brother, you could be a lady. I don't know. Your name was Operation Random. So I want to share something with you because recently, just the other day, one of my black belt buddies came back to training and he was nervous about getting into it. And there was even a purple belt situation. So I'm going to share a couple of these with you because I want to illustrate this because this is not just a white belt thing, This is something where people that across the board, anytime we get into something, there's initially that fear of the unknown when we've never done it before. But then once we've done it, and then we go back and we had like some time off and we want to go back to it, then we start to cook up new problems. Humans are really good about this, right? Especially if you have a natural sort of slant to be anxious towards stuff, which sounds like you might be. I am as well. You start thinking too much about stuff. So like when you first get into it, you're thinking too much, and then after you've already done it for a while, and then you come off, and then you're getting ready to do it again, you start thinking up new problems. You're always thinking about problems. The one thing is that the problem that you cook up is never as bad as the problem or the situation that actually happens. And I think you can probably look back in your life and realize situations like that. And so take that in with you. Now, here's the situation. So, buddy of mine, he's a black belt. He's been at this gym for a long time, but he hasn't trained in our main classes for a long time. He's just been out. There's a lot of different reasons, everything from family. He has a wonky shoulder that was like it's like he was born with it, something wrong with his the bone there, and just different situations. Life happens, right? Well, he wanted to come back to train, and he's talked about this. It's been a while. He's talked about this a bunch because he used to come in and drill with me. He'd be like, "Yeah, man, I'll be back soon. I'll be back soon," and he came in Monday. And what I was told, that my business partner said that what prompted him to come in was one of our other students who's a purple belt who came back to us after a couple of years. Just life happened, right? He came back after a couple of years, comes back, and he was talking the gym up. He's like, "Man, I love being in this place. I'm glad to be back," all this kind of stuff. And so then black belt sees that message on Facebook, and he's like, "Man, I need to get back in too." So he comes in on Monday. And we're talking, and initially when I first see him, I'm like, "Oh, hey, what's your name? Are you new here?" And just kind of messing with him and, kind of giving him crap about it. But then afterwards, obviously it was a big hug and glad to see him back, whatever. And he was talking about training. And he's like, "Man, I need to get back in." I was like, "Dude, come back, I was like, "What are you doing tomorrow? Come tomorrow." And he made a joke. He's like, "I beat the couch today," because he got back in and trained yesterday. And so hopefully this will continue. But again, part of what was making him, not want to train is he's just like me. He's an overthinker, and so he was overthinking the situation because he's a black belt, so he's going to step back on the mat. He hasn't trained for a couple of years, and he's going to wear that black belt, and that kind of. There can be nerves for it, just like it can be at any level. We can cook stuff up, and he got back in the gym, and again, everybody welcomed him. They were happy to see him. The guys, especially the guys that knew him, they were all happy to see him. And even that purple belt that got back with us, again, when he came back, it wasn't like a, "Where you been for 2 years?" It was like, "Hey, you're back." It's like an old friend. We're glad to see you. And I imagine that in your gym, it would probably be the same way. You'd walk in and your coach would be like, "Hey, dude, you're back. Glad to have you back. What's been wrong? Everything okay?" That kind of stuff. Trying to catch up with you. And again, just going back to it, we overthink things way too much. So you just need to do it. Now, the other thing that I want to sort of I illustrate this for any of you guys that are experiencing layoffs, that you've been gone for a little bit. When you hear a black belt, or you hear a grappler, you hear an MMA fighter, you hear a judo player, any of these guys, an athlete, right? These athletes, when you hear them talk about how long they've been training, understand that is typically, especially if you're you're just doing it as a hobby, that's not a typical nice training this many times a week for a long time. It's like, I was training for 4 days a week for a year, then all of a sudden, I got a new job, then I'm not training at all. A year later, I got back into it, then I'm training 3 days a week, then I had a kid, and then I had to train 1 day a week. It's all over the place. It's yo-yoing. There's injuries that get involved, there's life, there's all this stuff that gets involved. People's path in jiu-jitsu, the people's path in fighting, all the stuff that they get into a lot of times is not nice and straight. There's all kinds of stuff, all kinds of detours and layoffs and all that stuff. They're going to happen. Again, what's going to separate you from the people that quit is that you go back and do it. And again, so if you have any sort of anxiety about it, just if you want to do it. If you don't want to do it, then go do something else. Ain't nothing wrong with that. But if you want to do it, go do it. Go back in there. Any sort of stuff that you're cooking up in your head about what people might say or whatever, no one's going to say it, right? And if they do make you feel like crap about you coming back to the gym, then go somewhere else. But more than likely, what's going to happen is people are going to be happy to see you, and they're going to welcome you back, and they're going to be like, dude, Operation Random, whatever your real name is, you're back. Good to have you. So I think the video's finished. I think I've made my point. So guys, I'll talk to you next time.